Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating daily devotional from Pastor Beard Strong. It tackles a massive foundational concept, God's provision, but it actually grounds it in a modern, urgent, and totally unexpected reality. So let's get right to it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Give us this day our daily bread. You probably recognize it. It's straight out of Matthew 6:11. Pastor Strong anchors his whole message in a reflection by John MacArthur, pointing out a fundamental theological baseline here. God promises to provide for both our current and our future needs. And it's a super comforting thought, right? We ask humbly, and God provides exactly what we require.
But that actually brings us to a pretty tough question. If God provides, why are our spiritual cupboards sometimes bare? I want to disrupt our theological comfort zone for just a second here. We so often think of provision in these broad, abstract terms, but what happens when there is a real-world, tangible shortage of spiritual nourishment? How exactly do we reconcile the promise of provision with empty shelves?
Section 1. God's Daily Provision. To really understand this, we first have to unpack exactly what we mean when we talk about provision. It's kind of a tale of two necessities. On one side, we have our physical needs. These are the obvious tangibles, right? Food, clothing, and the money we earn through our God-given ability to work. But on the flip side, in really sharp contrast, we have our spiritual needs. This encompasses truth, our mindset, and our overall spiritual health, which are guided by God's Word. Pastor Strong makes a great point that while physical food keeps the body alive, it's actually the spiritual truth that governs our thoughts, our mindsets, and our behaviors behind the scenes.
And that leads to this rather sharp challenge from the pastor. Is the problem our provider or our excessive demands? I want you to really reflect on that for a moment. When we feel like we just don't have enough, or when we feel spiritually dry, is it because God is somehow holding back? Or is it because our own expectations are just totally overblown and we've lost our sense of humble gratitude for the daily blessings we already have?
Section 2. The Rural Church Crisis.
Now let's shift gears from personal reflection to a jarring reality check that is happening right now on the east coast of Taiwan. For most of us, when we walk into a Sunday service, we completely take for granted that a physical pastor will be standing at the front. The expectation is just, well, of course there's a pastor at church on Sunday. We assume that spiritual food is just going to be handed to us in person without a second thought.
But take a look at this massive number, 7. This is the number of pastors who have either left or retired from the Eastern Presbytery in the Hualien and Taitung regions of Taiwan over just the last 2 years. That is a staggering loss of leadership for a rural area. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the math. Right now, on any given Sunday, there are 7 to 8 churches with completely empty pulpits. They have literally no dedicated shepherd to preach to them. And sure, while there is some help coming, specifically 3 new pastors arriving in August who are assigned there via a lottery, the math simply doesn't add up. It proves there is a severe, urgent, and ongoing pastoral shortage that cannot just be fixed overnight.
Section 3. Redefining the pastoral call. Because of this acute crisis, Pastor Strong argues that we need a completely new mindset. The old model of one pastor for one comfortable church, that's being heavily challenged by reality. Pastors are not rare commodities to be hoarded. They must take on heavier burdens. Ministers shouldn't look at a shortage like this and think, wow, my market value just went up, I can pick and choose the easiest assignments. No. They need to step up, realize they aren't commodities to be traded, and be totally willing to shoulder the burden of pastoring multiple churches if that's what the flock actually needs.
Section 4. The Gospel Refrigerator.
Human effort alone can obviously only stretch so far across a geographic region. And this brilliantly illustrates Pastor Strong's core idea, the Gospel Refrigerator. It's basically a digital repository of sermons, podcasts, and AI-translated content meant to spiritually feed remote believers when a physical pastor just isn't available. I love this. It is such a sticky, comforting metaphor. You open the fridge when you're hungry, and boom, there's food waiting for you, pre-prepared and ready to sustain you.
So, let's walk through exactly how he's stocking this digital fridge. Step 1. Record daily podcasts and Sunday sermons so the teaching is always accessible. Step 2. Create highly relatable, local chat content, like his Taiwanese segments where he literally just chats while eating a bento box. Step 3, and this is truly surprising and innovative, translate it into English using AI. This ensures that even rural believers or listeners who prefer English can still access this spiritual nourishment. Technology is actively bridging the gap of the pastoral shortage.
But through all this incredible technology and effort, we absolutely have to keep the ultimate perspective here. We are just vessels. God remains the true provider.
Whether that provision comes through a physical pastor standing at a pulpit or a translated podcast streaming through a smartphone in a remote village, the technology and the people are simply the delivery methods for God's enduring provision.
So what can you do? Pastor Strong issues a crisp, empowering call to action detailing exactly how you can become part of the solution. You can participate by using your own personal gifts, you can physically bring people to church, you can share these gospel programs and podcasts with people who need them, or you can simply recommend solid theological books. There are so many incredibly practical ways to help stock the refrigerator for others.
Which brings us to our final big thought for today. How will you use your unique gifts today to feed someone else's spiritual hunger? It's not just about what we consume, it's all about what we provide for others using what God has given us. I want to leave you with that provocative thought. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this deep dive into God's provision inspires you to take some immediate action in your own community.